Hello and welcome everybody to SOG Tonight and my weekly review of Disney Plus's Lucasfilm and of course Star Wars series Andor, which appears every week, as we know, or streamed every week with a new episode on Wednesdays on Disney Plus, as you can see across the bottom. There you go. So I want to thank everyone who watched last week's episode that I had my guest Steve Helm on. It was his first time actually being on air with us, so it was great to have Steve come on and go break down the first 3 episodes of Andor, because as we know, the first 3 were released in one block, which was fantastic because there's a lot of stuff. The show gets into a lot of deep things, I feel, and the first 3 episodes were a little bit slow, as we spoke about last week. So it was very, very interesting to see from that point how things are going to progress. And we got a little bit more of that this week. So I will be having a guest come on shortly. We're bringing him on in a little while. And you will see, we'll get into it a little bit more. But if anybody's out there watching the show, you want to leave me a comment, don't forget you guys can leave comments during the show. Put a comment whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Facebook or Facebook Live. You can always leave a comment there. If you are watching on Twitter, you cannot leave comments, but if you would like on Twitter, you can always retweet put a comment in the comment on the episode on Twitter, and I will look at it and see and get back to you in the future. So yes, so it's so Andor has been, hold on a minute, sorry. All right, so Andor has been a revelation for me, and I'll wait till Aaron comes on. That's who's going to be my guest, by the way, Aaron Virola from the Fanboy Garage. He will be joining me shortly, but he has a little bit of technical difficulties working through right now. So when he comes on, I will bring him on. But just really quickly, I think the tone of Andor for me has been a little surprising, based off of what we know Star Wars to be, and especially what we've seen from the Disney Plus series so far. The tone of Andor has been different, definitely more in line with what we saw in Rogue One, but still even a little bit different from that. So my guest is here now. So without further ado, let me bring Aaron on. Hello there.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, man? So thanks for doing this.
Of course.
Yes, I know Aaron and I talk in a text group with a couple of other people.
More like quiet screaming.
Yeah, exactly. It is more like that. But yeah, we've been talking about Andor pretty much now since it started. And before that it was the Obi-Wan, and then we've talked about the other series before. So I guess I did this last week with Steve, and I guess I'll start with you too. I mean, most people have the same answer, but explain your Star Wars fandom a little bit. How did it begin? And
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's a childhood thing. Going back to the OT, funny, I have very fond memories of Star Wars on VHS. Like I don't know how my dad got copies of these things, but they were like, on just like the recorded VHS tapes. And I used to watch Empire Strikes Back, like it was going out of style. And it's the film that kind of stands out the most to me. But yeah, so it started there very young. Just again, fond memories of my dad and I kind of watching Star Wars together. And then, it had always been there, and it has evolved over time for sure. A crazy story. So when episode 1 was coming out. I was about to start college, and I needed to get my blood work done.
Okay.
And so I heard tickets were gonna be on sale and at my local theater. So I hadn't eaten anything because I had to get blood work and all that stuff, and I ended up waiting online for a very, very long, long time to get tickets to see The Phantom Menace. I ended up passing out online, um, because of my
Oh, damn.
because I was just like I hadn't had any food, I had blood given, all this other stuff, and passed out online, got up. People were like, "You're all right, though, here's a slushie," whatever. Get my sugar levels back up, and I ended up getting tickets. But anyways, like when I talk, would think about like diehard Star Wars fans, like I passed out online, and I still got to see one of the. Do you curse on the show?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the shittiest Star Wars films. I didn't know it was going to be that. Obviously, I don't think anyone did. But yeah, it just continues to grow and change for me. Um, I'm an avid book reader, of the Star Wars stuff, and not so much on the comic side. Like I'll grab comics because I want like first appearance of like the Mandalorian on in comic book form, but I don't really keep up with much of that stuff. But like I consume a lot of Star Wars stuff, shows, animated stuff, books, crazy fan theories. I'm a Star Wars toy collector, so like
Right.
I'm I'm all in. So I'm enjoying this. If it's Star Wars, it could be like the crappiest Star Wars, and I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna kind of absorb it, take it in. Um, I can't say that I've loved most like the some of the new stuff, um, like the sequel trilogy stuff. And well, that's a kind of a whole separate conversation.
Right.
But these Disney Plus shows I think are well made. I appreciate the stewardship that is being put out there like by way of Dave Filoni and John Favreau, and now Deborah Chow and some others. So I'm on board. And Andor is a great entry in all of that. I'm digging Andor big time.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I wanted to begin as well. Your overall feelings of at least where we are so far through the first 4 episodes of Andor, because we're kind of in sync on this. So
Yeah,
you could kind of just give a quick little rundown, and then we'll get into
yeah.
we'll recap the first 3 episodes a little bit, and then we'll go into episode 4.
I mean, dude, it's great Star Wars. It's different Star Wars. I just dropped a tweet moments ago about I'm struggling with people's reactions saying that it's not Star Wars. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. I think it's meant to be that way because it is a different side of Star Wars. The DNA of it is very much Star Wars. Um, but it's a very different story than what we've been used to getting. There aren't pre-established heroes or pre-established societies or sects of wizards and things like that. This is a people story. This is like the society of the galaxy and of the Republic, and people kind of coming to terms with the suffocation of the Empire on a whole group of people from a variety of different planets and systems and all of that stuff. That to me is Star Wars. It is the stuff I've read. Um, and I'm loving this because it does feel very grounded. It feels real. I understand very quickly now. Like I remember, it's funny. You talked about as I was coming in, I heard you kind of talking a little bit about the DNA of Rogue One and the connective tissue to Andor. I remember when I first saw Rogue One and Cassian shoots that dude in the alley. I was like, "Ooh, this is different. I I like this. Like this is okay. Like this guy isn't. He's not leaving any questions of who shot first. Like this dude, like straight up murdered that guy in the alley, no problem.
Yes.
And now I understand why. Like we're starting to put those pieces together of like, yeah, this is a very, this is a dude he came up hard and he's lived in oppressive states, and he's now being given the tools and the outlet for his revenge, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, man. This show begins kind of a similar way. The series begins kind of a similar way when he has that little incident in the bar with those two guys, and then he kills them too. Like
Yeah,
he had to. Once he killed the first guy, he was like, "Damn, if I don't kill the other guy, he's gonna fight. Like, he's gonna talk
yeah,
about me, find out about me."
yeah,
So that's the other. That was one of the first things I noticed watching this. When I watched the first episode, I was like, "Oh wow, it's very similar to how Rogue One begins." And I
yeah.
wonder if that was done intentionally. I don't know if Gilroy did that intentionally because he's the
It,
writer.
yeah,
But
it's funny because the one thing that did the differences in those two scenes was like absolutely was a necessity to happen.
right.
Um, it's the reaction from Andor in that moment. Like there was hesitation in him doing this, and in
Yes.
Rogue One there was no hesitation. He just does it.
Right.
And then there's the in this scene in Andor, there's a fear that hits him, whereas like it's almost like he's done this one too many times in Rogue One, where he just kind of walks off and like blends into the crowd and kind of goes. So like those are the subtle nuances and the differences, but I love the touch in it because it shows the arc that we're on board for, right? Like
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah. So what the first three episodes, I mean, I discussed last week with Steve on the show, but the first three episodes, just what were your favorite things about it? What were some highlight moments for you in the first three episodes?
Yeah. Well, first off was I love the slow burn of it. I did like it. At first it was a little I was like, "Oh boy, this is different. It's taking a little bit to kind of move off," but then I
Right.
appreciated it. And I outright love it. The other thing I love is the um the setup of cultures in this. I'm a big like expanding the universe of Star Wars fan. Like I'm all for that.
Yes.
And not dubbing uh Cassian and his tribe of people, like not dubbing any of the words there, I thought was great because it adds to the tension that's being created on the show. Like and it feels very Lord of the Flies, like something had probably wiped out their civilization, blah blah blah. Like I kind of like started to get some of those vibes.
Yeah.
And then what else was oh man I mean episode 3 was just tremendous.
Yes.
That conflict was great. I love the dialogue. I love the way that this thing is written. I love the way that it's shot. And I just love the unfamiliarity of it all, but the familiarity of it, if that makes any sense, like new droids, um you know new but they're obviously referencing things that we're familiar with, but like
Correct.
these unions, these worker unions and things like that that are kind of like facilitating some of the deconstructions of of vehicles and all of that stuff. The I love just the complexity of like a local government force trying to maintain order because they don't want the empire coming in, and that's exactly what they ended up getting when
Yeah.
we get into this episode of episode 4. So I love all of that stuff that's being created and crafted.
Yeah,
lo-
I feel like that. I feel the same way. Like I feel like the first three episodes, yeah, they were a little bit slow in building, but episode three like really kind of takes you there and kicks off the what we're gonna see now, right?
yeah,
So at the end of episode three, when we left off, Luthen Rail obviously kind of Cashin really didn't have any choice at that point, so
yeah,
he kind of was kind of coerced into going with him, and that's where we pick up in episode 4. So
yeah. I love that mirroring too of like when he first gets pulled off world, um, in the past, and how they were kind of matching that. Yet again he has to leave a planet that he considers home to kind of become something different, something bigger.
right. Constant reinvention, it seems
Yeah,
like this guy's going through, which is good if you're a spy, which is exactly what he becomes. So it's,
right.
you kind of, like you said, you see the layers of the character being built in this episode, which is being done beautifully
Yep.
as we go forward. So one of the big things I talked about last week was how we're doing some world building on this show, right? We're getting sights and seeing things that and people that we've never seen before,
Yep.
which is one of the things both of you and I have kind of agreed on as well. Like we need to flesh out the universe a little more outside of the Skywalkers and all the planets we know from that
Mhm.
series. So We got introduced to another new planet this week called Aldhani. That's actually the name of the episode, which was kind of, I didn't know at first, and then I'm like, oh, that's where they're going. So,
Yeah.
so that was very cool. So it looks kind of like the Irish or Scottish countryside a little bit. Um, and apparently it's centuries old. The Empire took over. There were 40,000 who lived across the highlands, and then they had to move when the
Right.
Empire's presence came. They had to move to the lowlands. Um, so Star Wars has done this even in the sequel trilogy. Like, we got to see other areas, new planets and stuff as well. They've been pretty good with this so far. So, what do you think of Alhani as a Star Wars planet?
I mean, yeah, it's one created for the show.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, the more of that expansion that they're doing and kind of showing the reverberation of the empire on these societies and how um these rebellion cells are kind of sprouting up in these instances where there's been severe oppression and things like that. It's something that we're not unfamiliar with. It happened. I mean, if anyone's a big fan of the Clone Wars or even Rebels, there are rebellions that spark up on Lothal. There
Yep.
are rebellions that spark up on Ryloth. These are familiar planets, and so if they were to go back to those things, like, been there, done that. Thank you. But I like the fact that they're creating new stuff. They're expanding that universe, and they're kind of they're giving us a terrain and a area that we're not familiar with. So it kind of we don't know
Right.
what could be underneath. We don't know some of the challenges that Andor and crew may face as they're kind of executing their cash grab. Um, so I like it. I mean, again, I mean, I think that's been the fun part, really, of what we're beginning in these new Star Wars shows and movies and things like that. Like, where they what was it, like Rogue One, where they show us
Yes.
where Jyn Erso lived and the moisture farms there. Thought that was really cool. Um, Jeddah, another great,
Right. Another
you know,
one that, yeah.
yup, Crate and The Last Jedi. These are interesting, planets and things like that have um they have character of their own, you know. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know most of them, obviously they're all shot on Earth, but most of them are, some of them are even remote places that a lot of people don't get to go to or get to visit, that they get to use for these
Oh, like Octo.
yeah, like Octo, right? So it's just another cool part of what they're doing with this show and how they're continuing to press. And it's one of the things of the Disney era that I've liked, where they've added these new planets and stuff that just kind of add more to the Star Wars universe instead of going back to Tatooine all the time.
I mean, I'm good with not seeing Tatooine for a long time.
Exactly. So another thing that's been big in this show is releasing, adding new characters. So we meet another new character in this one, Vel Sartha. She's actually supposedly going to be a big part of the show moving forward. She seems to be one of the early rebels, freedom fighter, but she's connected to Luthen, one of his contacts, and she's pretty, strong female character. Star Wars has historically had strong female characters, so
Mhm.
she's another one. You can definitely tell she doesn't take crap from anybody. So that's another cool little a new character they added. I'll just go through each one of them.
Mhm.
We'll go and we could go back. You could go back and talk about them. Imperial Lieutenant Gorn. He's actually their kind of inside man on Aldani, because that's where we meet Vel Sartha on Aldani. So that she's kind of the inside man in the Empire there, kind of a double agent working for the rebels. Major Partagaz, I think that's how you say his name. He's the head. We finally meet the Imperial Security Bureau, which is what Krennic was a part of
That's right.
in Rogue One. We finally meet the rest of the Imperial Security Bureau. Major Partagaz is the head of it, and as you mentioned before, talking about it, they take over for the security, uh, the private security on. I'm forgetting the planet's name again. I said it last week.
Yeah, it starts with an M.
Eminem, yeah.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it as well.
But that's if you watched the show last week, that's they're taking over now
Morab
because of what
Prime or
happened.
something. Morab 1, something like that.
Yeah, it's Par something,
Yeah.
Par M, and then yeah, I know we're terrible. But yeah, so he's kind of like the Tarkin character in a little bit of ways. Like when I'm watching it, that's when I first saw it, I'm like, that can't be him, because that's the first thing that
Yeah,
came to my
yeah.
head. But no, it's not. And then another character, another strong female character, Deidre Miro. She's an member of the ISB. There might be a little bit more to her character going forward, but
Yeah.
because of what happened with Cashin on Ferric, she's it's not, that's not technically her sector to look over, but she wants information about what happened there to try and figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Then, of course, we have the return of Mon Mothma, who, by the way, her ride was sweet, man. That
I
car.
know, right?
I want to be a senator
Can
in
I get hooked
this
up with
world.
one of those?
Seriously. And then Perrin Firtha is another person that was mentioned, which is actually her husband. I didn't even know she had a husband. So
Well,
there
he
we go.
probably ends up dying.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I mean, he quickly set himself up to be one of the most hated Star Wars characters with 30 seconds of screen time.
That's true.
Yeah.
We'll get a little bit more about that interaction as we go a little bit further through the show. But I just wanted to throw out the new characters that we got introduced to this one. There was a couple other ones that I didn't really think were that important, so I didn't include them. But
Yeah, like Luthen's assistant. I
yes,
don't even. It sounded like he was saying Leia, but it was like Rayla, something like. I didn't even
yes,
catch the name, but yeah, I mean, clearly he has a network of people that are aligned to his cause. But yeah, I mean, that was the thing about this episode, was like the introduction of all these new characters. Just increased the stakes, because I'm invested in each of their little subplots and little stories that are going on, right? Like Mon Mothma's, the pressure that she's starting to feel, um, spies in the Senate, her driver getting changed, her husband sits on the other side of justice. That's some good stuff right there. You know what I mean? Like, we don't see any of this in live action, I should say, because Mon Mothma is quite
yeah,
a prevalent character in a couple of episodes, I believe, in Rebels, and then the Clone Wars, I believe. But in Rebels, we are kind of seeing her before some of the stuff that happens in Rebels. But yeah, like, it's only a matter of time before her dominoes get tipped and she's like all in on the rebellion and has to kind of run off. And because I don't think she's able to play that one part senator, one part rebellion person. I don't think she keeps that going for a while.
yeah. I mean, I know they shot extra scenes for her in Revenge of the Sith that we never got to see.
Yeah.
We got to see them on the DVDs and the Blu-rays
Yeah, she
releases, but
starts planting the seeds for rebellion. Yeah. And then these other characters, Velsartha, I think is interesting. I was like, man, she's gonna flip on him fast, but no. And so she's in it for the long haul, and I like the intimacy of that group of rebels, because it is very much of like a cell of trust. And Cassian comes in and is the new face, and there's automatic, like, this guy's gonna throw us out of sync, and there's no way we can do this. And just that kind of, again, the tension of him having to earn their trust, but no, understanding that he's all in on whatever it is that they've got going on, because he knows nothing else, right? Like, I I was like, when the episode ended, I was like, of course we're not going to get to the to the job that they're planning, but
yep,
I'm in on that stuff. And then with the ISB, we've only gotten a small taste of that.
yep,
If anyone looks back at A New Hope, there's only like one member of the ISB sitting at the table where Vader is and some of the other Imperial officers. With Tarkin, obviously, Krennic was a big one for Rogue One, but there's a lot of cool stuff that's being woven into some of the conversations that are being had at that table. Like they are diverting a lot of resources to a particular system because they're starting to build the Death Star. And
Right.
if you're not a if you're not as deeply invested in Star Wars as some of us are, you're not gonna catch that stuff. So you know that stuff is like super interesting. And then like everyone vying for power, and I mean that's what the Empire created was fear mongering and power mongering and all that stuff, and people just trying to chop each other down. And I I'm invested. Like, let me see what happens with these people. Um,
Yeah, I'm
so
with you. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like you're right. These all the characters, they're rich characters. You could tell that they're gonna have an impact in this show. The show is long, as we know.
yeah,
It's technically it's 2 seasons. Technically, it's 24 episodes, right? So it's two
right,
seasons technically. I don't know how they're breaking it up or what they're doing. How they're figuring out 12 and 12, or they.
yeah,
I think that's how they're doing it. So it's going to be interesting to see how all these new characters every week. I feel like we're getting more and more added, so which is cool.
yeah.
So let's quickly go into this one and start talking about what happens in episode 4. So as episode 3 ended off, like I said before, they're on a ship going to now we know as Alhani, and during that trip, Luthen and Cashin have a conversation, and you kind of learn a little bit more that Luthen knows again a lot more about Cashin than Cashin knows that he know like than he
Yeah,
knows about him. Um, and you find out the real reason why he even went there. It wasn't for the part that
yeah,
Cashin had. It was for him, right? So obviously his reputation is already kind of there for Luthen to even know who he is. He already has kind of a reputation, and he convinces him to do this job that he's going to Aldhani for to do.
hmm,
He tells him he needs to pick a name and he can't use his real name. So he
hmm,
picks Cam, right? Cam? Is it Cam? I think it's Cam.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, so he picks that a specific name, and that's the name he goes with going forward. Again, kind of the first thing we see of him being a spy for the rebellion is already he's getting a name.
yep,
He's getting a
yep.
different name than his own. So that conversation, what did you do? You feel like you know a little bit more now, or you're a little bit more intrigued into what their relationship
Yeah, I
is
want
going?
Luthen is obviously someone who um has deep resources, and so his ability to kind of just like here's all this stuff that happened to you, and you ran, you basically deserted your post,
Yeah,
kind of thing, was interesting. And then I was watching the video, um Screen Crush, and they were talking about that battle that Cassian is in is actually a battle that we see Han Solo in Solo, um,
yeah, the mud.
with the mud and all that stuff, where he meets Chewbacca. That's like, man, that's like good stuff to kind of like start to sing some of, but again, it's not what I'm loving. And sorry, because I'm derailing this a little bit, but
Go
like
ahead,
what I'm
no.
loving about the show is that the Easter eggs are deep Easter eggs, and
Yes.
it's stuff that's like they're smacking you with this, and you're like, did they? Wait, you got to do some research, go to Wikipedia, like, you know what I mean, to kind of connect those dots. But it's like it's not blatant uh Easter eggs or blatant fan service that they're throwing in there. It's like they're kind of talking about stuff that's in the universe that's kind of swirling around without having to smack you in the eye with it. And that's the stuff that I love, because I feel like oftentimes the creators of Star Wars, be it the movies or the TV shows, are having to do this fan service. They go, yeah, look, see, this is still part of Star Wars. Like, see that character is there, or like, yeah, that that should feel familiar to you. You should feel really good. Hey, old person that you only like grew up loving the OT, like that's for you. Like they're not doing any of that stuff really. It's still
No.
all within Star Wars, canon. So I dig that. But anyways, going back to your original question, I mean, that conversation was deep. I kind of wish, Cassian went on guard and been like, "Who exactly are you, man? Like, how do you know so much about me? And like, are you spying on me? Like, what is going on here?"
He knew his
That'd have been,
father. Yeah, he knew his
yeah, like
father.
that'd have been my first question.
Yeah.
I don't, by the way, I don't think his father is his father. Like,
Right. I
I
know
think,
what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it was his like surrogate mother that helped get him to do this.
Right. Yeah.
That, yeah. But anyways, I mean, still more to divulge here.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll revisit. I'm sure they'll revisit that.
Yeah,
Those are the other characters that we got introduced to in the first show.
yeah.
So
And Luthen has like just the show that he has to put on. That's
yes, yeah,
that's like great stuff, man.
yeah.
Like
Like we
practicing
can.
the smile.
Yes, we can go right there. We could go just hop to that right there. You see when Luthen gets to Coruscant, because we're back
Yeah,
in Coruscant again, which was a cool thing to see. It was a little interesting to see, not to see some of the destruction, but I know it's been a while, so
yep.
it was just interesting to see how that how they've recovered and how quickly the Empire's rebuilt their
Well, it's
capital.
affluence.
Yeah, so Luthen, we meet the real Luthen. Well, maybe he first he puts on a wig. That's the first
Yeah,
thing we notice, that he's wearing this wig now, and then he's kind of like a art collector or an
yeah,
artifacts collector. At least that's his cover. And he's clearly has money. He's wealthy. Uh, and that's when we first meet Mon Mothma. She comes into the scene, and like I said, her car was, damn, that was a really nice car.
yeah,
Uh, she has her assistant. She goes in to buy something for her husband.
yeah,
That was the cover, and then they go in the back and they talk, and he kind of tells her, like, what's going on? What could you do? And she was kind of like, if anyone's under the pressure here, it's me. They kind of have a
right.
little bit of an argument about the status of things and how quickly things can get done. So yeah, so it was. I think Skarsgård does an excellent job of doing both roles in that scene. How quickly he switches from just looking like this flamboyant art collector, then going in the
Yeah,
back and turning into the guy that we saw in
yeah.
the first. Right?
His whole voice changes. Like
Yep.
his eyes narrow in. Like, yeah, he goes into hunter mode. Um, yeah, it was really good stuff. And like I said, the prep where he's like looking at himself, getting that smile going,
Mhm.
salesman smile, and the way he welcomes Mon Mothma in, and then when he gets her behind, in the back room, he's like, "What?" He starts growling, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" It's good stuff, man. Like, again, we've never really seen any of this stuff in Star Wars, and you know, it is truly world building. We would have to imagine that this stuff had to happen.
Right.
Um, my biggest critiques of Star Wars is one, the timeline that we were stuck on, which is, probably within this like 80-year time period.
Right.
Um, and we haven't really diverted from the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
Even the Mandalorian, it kind of does a little bit of like zigzag in and out of it.
Right.
But this is the first time where they've taken that timeline and they're running something parallel to it.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm on board for all of that. Like that, chef's
Right.
kiss, so good.
We know the characters that we are there. It's still technically the same timeline, right? We know that,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it doesn't feel like it. And that's one of the biggest pluses, I think, about this show, is that it doesn't, like, you can play in the back of your mind, well, he's here. Obi-Wan. We know where Obi-Wan is because we just had the
Right.
show. So we know that. But you could do that in the back of your mind if you
Yep.
want to. And then you don't have to do that at all. You could just pull back and watch the show for being the show.
Yeah. I
And
mean, like
it's
Vader is there.
right.
Like I totally forgot. I had to. It was funny because when we were on Aldani, and they're walking in, and you see the TIE fighters fly by. I was like, "Holy shit!" I totally forgot that we are like right. I don't know why I forgot it,
I know.
but it was like they zoom by, and I'm like, oh, "That's right. Their TIE fighters are here." Um, and then his, Andor's whole trying to understand the plan a bit, and he's like, did you not see that there were TIE fighters here? Like, you're not gonna make it like 50 clicks out of the atmosphere before they come and shoot you down. So he's like intimately familiar with what they have at their disposal and how quick these things are and all of that stuff. Like, I love it. Give me the fork and spoon. I'll eat this up all day. Like, this is, but again, it's like all of those things. Vader is around, Tarkin is around, the Emperor is around. There's
Yep.
all of this stuff kind of brewing, and we don't. It is so far in the back of my mind, and I'll be honest, I'd be so happy if we don't see any of those people in this show.
I,
But I,
I
but I wouldn't put money against it.
yeah, I wouldn't put money against it. I don't know if we'll see them as like have a main character arc in the show, but I think we might know that they're around.
Yeah.
And like, oh, they're in the next room, or they're somewhere
Right.
off
Right. Right.
screen that we're not seeing them.
Like
Uh,
Tarkin's name is totally going to get dropped
right.
in this.
Like we're definitely gonna hear his name. Obviously, with where
Yeah.
they are in the show, his name's gonna get dropped, and that
Yeah.
would be okay. I mean, he's one character that we haven't had too much of, so I
Yeah.
think that's okay.
Do you want
Uh,
to see like a younger Krennic? If we're
that would
in the ISB, I almost thought we were gonna get him, like, as they were panning around the table. I was almost waiting to see Krennic just sitting there like, "Duh, duh, 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 duh."
Well, this is 5 years before Rogue One, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, so are we gonna see Galen? Will
y-
we see Galen Urso?
yeah, yeah.
Who knows? We don't
I mean,
know.
there was like a talk. There was a even on Aldani, they were talking about a engineer coming on, and that they would all of their attention would be diverted to this engineer, and that's the first place my head went.
Yeah, that's a good call. Right.
Yep.
So let's talk about that what he's on Aldani for and what the Freedom Fighter group is being tasked to do. So they're being tasked to steal payroll records from a Imperial garrison, basically. And it's only 7 of them, and apparently this thing is very heavily guarded. And it seemed like Luthen was kind of like, if you don't take Andor with you, you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty much what he told Val. Um or Val, sorry. If you don't take cash in with you, first of all, I'm not gonna support it, and then you guys are gonna fail anyway.
Yeah.
So this is another. I mean, Star Wars has always been good at the David and Goliath story, right? Like
Yep.
that's basically what the story is
Underdogs.
based
Yeah.
on, right? The underdogs. So you always Star Wars has always been good at that, but this again, the brilliance of this show for me is that they're actually showing you this time how they're going to do this, right? There's like a model that they have, and it's kind of the scale, and then she's pointing things out, and then one of the guys in the group is this very nerdy guy who
Yeah.
I have a feeling he's going to get killed, but he just seems like that guy who gets killed
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
these type of deals. But the detail that they're going to explain this, and this is what I think Gilroy is doing so fantastic. It gets you all like, okay, we need this to happen. I want to see this happen. And like you said, and then the end of the show, you're like, oh, it's not going to happen this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. Like when they
So
were talking about that moment where there's this like stardust stuff or all these meteors and whatever.
right,
I'm like, I can't wait to see what this looks like. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I was sitting there like, oh, this is brilliant. Like they're gonna use some sort of like natural phenomenon that happens on this planet as a means to escape. Can't wait for it.
yeah, it's like a I guess the best thing I can explain is like kind of like a meteor shower type
Something
thing.
like that gets pushed into the atmosphere and starts to explode. Like,
Yeah, and one of the guy, Lieutenant, I forget his name already. Gorn, Lieutenant Gorn is the guy he's obviously the insider for them
yeah,
in the Empire, and he says, it happens every 3 years. I've been here 7 years, and I've seen it twice.
yeah.
That's what he says in the show. So
Yeah,
you're
and
kind
I'm
of
like,
like,
dot, dot, dot. It is not going to happen this year.
right.
I'm like,
So like
oh man.
he puts that out there in the universe, and he even says it's like fantastic to see, and
Yeah.
so that yeah, it's going to be cool to see how that all comes about, and see if they can actually get this thing done. But
Do you think we see it next episode? Or do you think that this is going to be like the build up towards, like the episode 5? Oh, wait, that is episode 5. Wait a
yeah,
second.
so
Yeah. So it's funny because these shows have a thing like always in episode 5, like something crazy happens. I don't know why that is. Um, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe we get to it in the next episode.
I think we will. I think it'll happen the next episode because at the end of the episode, they're all hanging out, camping, and eating, and they're all looking at Andor. And he goes, "Can I eat?" Like,
Yeah,
like like what the hell's going on here?
see, and that feels like Star Wars.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is
yeah.
Star Wars. You
And
know?
then because he's like, "Let's roll." He's like, "Let's go." That's what he
Yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah.
So I have a feeling it's gonna happen the next episode. Um, but with these things, they might be trying to do a slow build,
Yeah.
maybe trying to get there a little bit later, or maybe next week. There's always also in every series, there's one episode that's kind of a throwaway.
Yep.
So who knows? We might get that one next week. I don't know, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it's funny because again, they are doing such a great job at enriching these characters that, like, if it was a throwaway and we just sat with like Mon Mothma for a while, I'd be down for that. Like I am invested in her world. I'm invested in supervisor Deidre, uh, and like her, hope, well, expected rise to power, and whatever it is that she's planning on doing, God knows. But like I want in on all of that stuff, so I'm cool with like that slow burn as we continue to kind of unpack who each of these characters are and their role in things. So, and I mean, and that's the other thing. Like, so they've got senators, obviously, in the Galactic Empire who are turning into sparks for the rebellion, which is great. But then there's also the the Imperials themselves, the Imperial commanders and the ISBs, and people who start to get disillusioned with all this stuff. And we saw it a little bit in Kenobi.
Yeah.
It has happened before. There are other characters, commanders and things like that in the books that have flipped. So maybe that's what ends up happening for Deidre, is she ends up becoming someone who's like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna help I'm gonna help them, kind
If
of.
she isn't already, right?
Exactly.
Right. She could
Right.
already be on the inside. We don't
Right.
know.
Because she was trying to get to the planet, says that was within her jurisdiction. The other thing
Yes.
I'm so excited about is K2SO.
Yes. Are we going to see K2SO? Yes.
Yeah.
That's going to
But
be.
the funny thing is that they're kind of like they're not that they're hinting at it, but like there's an affinity between Andor and droids that we get in those first couple of episodes, and then when he's looking at what's his name, Luthen's ship, the onboard droid computer is like, may I help you with
Yeah.
something, and he just kind of looks at him like, yeah, this is fun. I like, I love that stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's kind of like the droid whisperer in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, he has like this like attachment to them for
Yeah,
sure.
he
You know,
does. We get K2 was great in Rogue One, one of the
yeah, oh,
best
yeah,
parts. So
big time.
yeah, so yeah, let's quickly go back to the ISB, because we get the first time we see it is a scene where they're in. It just looks like the round table that we saw in A New Hope, just
Yep.
a different color, right?
Yeah.
It's gray this time and not black. So that's, and all you see, all the Imperial uniforms are all dressed up so nice.
Yeah.
Um, have that look, and Partagaz, obviously, like I said, he's kind of like the Tarkin character for this show, and very ruthless. The actor who plays him, we've seen him in so many similar roles. Anton Lesser's his name.
Yeah.
We've seen him in so many similar roles that, like, right away when you see him, you're like, okay, yeah, he's really bad. Like this,
Yeah.
that's a
The
really,
hook
really bad.
nose of his, huh?
Yes, it just right away. Um, yeah, and then we see the Deidre conflict, right? That's the first time we kind of see she's listening to what went on, and she's kind of like, I don't understand. And then
Right.
she asks the other commander, I forget his name. We've seen him before too. She asked him for the records, basically,
Hmm.
what's going on, what went on, because it was his sector, and he's like, well, it's not mine, I'm taking care of it. And they it looks like they kind of have a history,
Yeah.
some sort too, which I guess we'll find out going forward. But what did you think of that scene in the ISB, I guess, conference room?
Yeah. It's funny because it was interesting to see it because again, we've only seen Krennic and obviously, there is this always never ending vying for power and placement and favor, looking for favor within the Empire. I mean, that's why Tarkin took the Death Star away from Krennic, right? And you get that nice confrontation between Krennic and Tarkin about, you stand on the things that I built, that I forget I'm totally misquoting it, but he gets all hot. Um, the the way that what's his name? I'm not even able to pronounce this dude's name.
Oh, Partagaz.
Partagaz.
Yeah.
His analogy of being healthcare was a very twisted way of
Yeah.
thinking of the ISB, but in the same breath, it was a weak scene for me because if that is the way that he is viewing their role, then any symptom of a potential rebellion, any you know murmur of some sort of organized pushback would be examined, and he would come down with full force to obliterate it. That's how you would think about it, and he dismissed her completely when she brings brings her complaint and says, hey, like I have other examples of this being some sort of organized or orchestrated you know uh action or rebellion. And he's like, until you have more, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh my god, what is happening? Like, that is the only weak part of that episode where I kind of was like, you just reneged on everything you just said, like in the scene before. So like, I got stuck on that for a quick second, and then was like, okay, this is going to be something else that we'll have to another plot point that they'll kind of continue to develop. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to watch how these different like sort of sub organizations within the empire are operating. And again, because we've never really seen any of
We
this
haven't.
stuff,
No.
like the politics, which from the prequel era was like enough to choke on because it was too much, and you're like, I don't really know. But this kind of stuff, like the bureaucracy of it, the again the power mongering and the kind of push and pull between people trying to get that favor, that to me is more interesting, and that's probably as political as it'll get. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like in that scene, like the first scene you see when they're all together in the room and then she goes to him with the complaint afterwards,
Yeah.
I feel like he's doing that kind of to test her.
Mm.
Because I think he might feel there's something weird about, like, why is someone it's not her sector, why is she so
Oh,
ambitious
why is
to
she
find out
pushing
what's
in?
going
Yeah.
right, why is she trying to go on? So I think he might be reading into it saying, hey, she might have a different motive, and
Yeah, she's playing an angle.
I
He's
want
trying
her
to
to,
flush her out.
yep, I want to kind of find out what it is. Um, because that's
Mm.
similar to something that Tarkin would do. That's similar to something like Thrawn would do.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
those
yeah.
kinds
Those
of guys.
tacticians.
Right. So I'm wondering if he's that in that same mold. And the whole purpose of that scene was really to punish kind of Cyril and the what happened on Morlana. That's the system.
Yep.
Morlana, what happened there to punish Cyril and him going after Andor and on Ferrix.
Yep.
So that they're kind of like, yeah, well, we're kicking you out now, right? Like we're here. And
Yeah.
and you're right. That's what he didn't. The head of the security system on Morlana didn't want to happen.
Yep.
So and then it happened anyway because of him. So we do see Cyril, who we got to know in the first 3 episodes, get probably the ultimate punishment because he had to go back and live with his mother.
Gotta go home to mama. Lick those wounds, buddy.
Yep, and she slaps him the first thing she does when the door opens, she slaps him.
Yeah. I'm trying to it was funny because that actress I've seen.
Yes, I have
Oh,
too.
you know where I remember? Okay, there it is. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. She's in Harry Potter. She is uh she is the muggle woman that
I
that
Yes.
grabs him after the Dementors attack him. Him and Dudley.
Yes. I know. Yes. Okay.
It's her face. She's got this like really weird looking, like kind of grinny thing. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, now it just hit me. But anyways, yeah, his art. Yeah, he's an interesting character.
Yes.
I want to see what happens to him because at first I was like, is he going to become? I forgot the character's name in Rebels. That ends up taking Fulcrum. I forgot the guy's name.
Oh God. Yes.
Y-
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but like he kind of flips. And I thought, oh, maybe they'll do that with him, or this guy will play some other significant role. But I don't think he's done. I think he's going to come back to fight. I think there's a blind justice and sort of righteousness that sits on that man's shoulders, and he can't stay out of the fight.
See, I think he's gonna join the rebellion.
Do you?
I do. I think eventually he's going to become a rebel. I said it last week when I first saw him. They're kind of setting him up to be that guy who's like so strict and and then he finally
He
finds out,
gets broken.
right?
Like your whole world is a farce.
Right. And then
Yeah.
that's how I feel. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now he's kind of a sympathetic figure because he's so pathetic in a way. Like he's such a pathetic character.
Mm.
But yeah, so we kind of got his arc now a little bit closed, I guess, for the time being. But we know he's one of the main characters of the show, so we know he'll be returning sometime down the line.
Mm.
So yeah, so you kind of hinted at this before with Mom Mothma and her husband, and so yes, we know that's kind of towards the end of the episode. We get a scene with her going back to her house, which by the way is a beautiful house.
Yeah.
Right. So clearly, as we said before, she's got some money.
Yeah, senators live well.
Yes,
I mean, it remind me of like Amidala's
yeah.
That balcony and all that stuff.
Yeah. So
sorry.
yeah, don't bring up that scene. So yeah, so we finally meet her husband, and when she walks into the house, he's in their dining room, I guess, and he's setting up for a dinner party. So she's sitting there and she's like, oh, okay. She seems kind of tired, but he's like, who's coming? And he mentions a bunch of people. He mentions two people though that we've already met. Ars Danger is one of them, and Sly Moore is the other one. And Sly Moore, we know, is the Emperor's most trusted, I guess, sidekick or confidant or whatever.
Yeah.
She's the one that we see in Revenge of the Sith, the kind of white, bald character
with the big shoulders, right?
Yeah, yes. And so and obviously when you hear that name, that was put in there for us to realize, like, okay, these guys are not good guys. We understand why Mon Mothma has a problem with them, because not only is it the situation, but they're obvious. She says they try to stop everything I try and do,
right?
Which obviously makes sense. And you see that. So that present that she was buying her husband, guys, she didn't give it to him.
Yeah.
So I'm not married, but you are, Aaron. So you can relate to that a little more.
I'm like, dang, man, she's pissed.
Right?
Oh yeah, that thing that I didn't. He's like, oh, let's see. No, it's going right back. Yeah, that was a tense scene too, between the two of them. Obviously they sit on very different sides of the political table.
Yes.
And there was a line, man. I'm trying to remember what she said. Well, but it was like so like, oh, like she's like, and don't make me pay attention because you'll regret it. Something like that.
Yeah, first she asks, she says, don't sit me near them.
Yeah.
Number one, because she didn't want to sit on the side of the table. And he was kind of like, well, you don't like anyway. Like normally you just don't. And then she says that, yeah, she says something. I was like,
oh man, she is not one to trifle with.
Yeah. So see, the scene is put in there again to show the struggle that she has, right?
Personal struggle.
Yes, the interpersonal struggle that she has. She has to be on the face, the front. She has to kind of look like just a normal senator who's just doing her daily job. But you can tell this in this one scene that she's not, she's not having it. She doesn't want any of this.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to deal with these people. If she doesn't have to. And I do wonder if the Perrin, her husband, the Perrin Firtha character, is going to wind up uh being someone in the Empire.
Yeah.
They're kind of, laying the foundation for maybe that kind of thing, or he's going to be the one that kind of tips off the Empire that maybe there's a rebellion beginning or
Yeah.
something like that going on. But I thought that scene, as far as the acted scenes in this episode, I felt that one, the first one was between Cassian and Luthen, and then the Luthen Mothma scene in the shop. I feel like those three were like the best acted scenes
Yeah.
in the episode. Had the most tension. Kind of gave you that feeling, like the anticipatory feeling, like crap. Okay, I want to know more, right? Like you just want to know
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I didn't know, like, when she walked in and he was like setting up the table, I was like, oh, it's like another assistant. But then as they were kind of like going at it, I'm like, oh, no way, her husband is like a imperial sympathizer,
yeah,
blah blah blah, like, and I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be some interesting stuff, and again, the thoughtfulness around making it a truly personal connection, because obviously they had to have, if they're married, this wasn't like we got arranged, it was like a political thing, blah blah blah, like they had to have had some sort of camaraderie and love for each other. So to find themselves now, at the height of the rebellion, kind of sitting in different sides of the aisle is probably hard enough as it is. But she's running the side game now as kind of kicking off the rebellion and having to hide that from her husband, and now having to walk into the lion's den of your own home. Like, that's intense stuff, and I had said this again on Twitter, but it was like, to me, this series feels very much like the Captain America Winter Soldier of Star Wars. And it's not because of the political overtones or undertones that is doing this, because the tone of it of its entirety is different, but still fits like it's in that universe, right? So like Captain America the Winter Soldier is my favorite
me too.
of the MCU.
Yep,
And
me too.
but it was because like the stakes were real. It put a lot of our heroes in danger, and at the end it created such a seismic shift in the direction of the characters and of the universe itself, and I feel like that is exactly what Andor needs to be for all of these things. Like, it is the thing that you know becomes the catalyst for the rebellion, right? But it also shows us, and it will show us because we know Saw Gerrera pops up in this,
Right.
the different factions of rebellion, right? And so these things are already operating. Like, Saw Gerrera is already on his path
Yes.
at this stage,
Yes.
and we know that there's some sort of diversion from like his tactics and the way Mon Mothma and the rest of the rebellion were running, and kind of distancing themselves from that. Maybe we'll see some of that. Maybe we'll see how that, like, his, again, because I think Saw Gerrera is a very, very interesting character. Watching how he kind of operates in this realm and how Andor connects with that or doesn't, whatever. Like, I'm all in. I'm all in. Like, I mean, that's the thing. I'm like, there's so many different roads to
Right.
sink your teeth into, and I'm like, yeah, this is great stuff. It's like, again, the ground level stuff.
I feel like for the first time, um, we're getting a show where there could be so many possibilities that could
Yeah,
happen from it, right? Like, I feel like, again, I love the Mandalorian. I liked Obi-Wan. I was fine with both of them. Um, the Mandalorian kind of has that a little bit, obviously, because then we got the Book of Boba Fett, which I hated, but I didn't
yeah,
hate it, just
yeah,
but quality wise, to me, it just wasn't as good as the other ones. But this show seems like we could get offshoots from it that aren't, like, don't have to do with what, like you said, the main through line of the Skywalker
yeah,
saga. Like, we could get enough more parallel stories from it regarding these characters, depending on where they go with it. So that's one of the things that this show has done for me so far, is really open up for more possibilities. Like, I see other ways they can go. There's one character that I'm wondering if we'll see in here. We've only seen him in video games so far, but he's around. And I'm thinking of Cal Kestis. I know he's supposed
oh
to get his own
yeah.
show. There's been talk about him getting his own show. Uh,
Mm,
but I wonder if he'll pop up somehow, somewhere. Maybe even Caleb Dune.
Yo,
Kanan
man.
Jarrus, right? Like,
Yeah.
these other characters, these Jedi type characters are out there.
Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah, well, we know Ahsoka's out there
Yes.
too. But yeah, and I wonder if there's any overlay with that in this show. I don't know, but
Yeah, again, I mean, I think for me, I couldn't bet that they wouldn't show up because it's Star Wars, and it has always been we're going to kind of give you the thing that you least expected to show up just to blow your mind, like Luke Skywalker popping
the
up
Mandalorian.
in The Mandalorian. Like, I see the X-Wing, I see the green lightsaber, and I'm like, there's no way they're gonna be doing this. Like, no way. No, that's somebody else. Where our chains are getting jerked. And then I saw the belt and I was like, that's Luke Skywalker. Holy shit. So yeah, I feel like there might be moments like that in this show. I don't want them. I don't necessarily need them. But again, I mean, I think when you think collectively about the world building stuff, they're almost necessities in a way because they belong in this plot.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And I mean, I think here, for me, the thing that strikes me is like, why I would give this show, like, if I had more than two thumbs, more than two thumbs up, is that they're making me care about a character I already know his fate. He sacrifices himself for this cause,
right.
and how he gets there is becoming very important to me. And the impact that his character is having on like a whole group of people that have only been just this collective and have only been identified by a handful of key characters like Leia, like Wedge Antilles. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
they're adding a lot more to that, and they're kind of giving some different faces to what we think the rebellion is, and the heart that sits at the center of that. So like, I mean, again, I'm still struggling with, I can't really put my finger on why people are having this reaction to this show, is sort of like not feeling like Star Wars, because shit is everywhere. Like, it just is. It just is Star
Right.
Wars to
Like,
me.
I get it doesn't have the fantastical elements, right? I think that's the part that's probably the most difficult for people to deal with.
Yeah.
You don't have there's no force wielding person that we've met so far in Andor. There's no,
There's
there
no
are
stormtroopers. We haven't seen
right.
stormtroopers yet.
There's no stormtroopers. Like, there's nothing that connects it to what you know
Yep.
already, outside of the fact that yes, we know Cassian Andor from Rogue One, and we know what happens to him in the end.
Yeah.
Like
The
that.
droids look different. The ships look
Yes.
different.
Yep. The
The,
TIE
uh,
fighters you
the
mentioned, that was the first time we got,
yeah, yeah.
right?
And the ISB has only been seen in, well, again, New Hope, but like beyond that, Rogue One.
Yeah, Rogue One. That's it. Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it. It's the most unfamiliar of Star Wars that has been presented to us before. So, people need time, but I think that's the beauty of it.
No, I
That
agree
is,
with you. Like, I mean, we've been kind of arguing with Rick, right? Everyone knows Rick Shu.
yeah.
Listen to the show. We've kind of been arguing with Rick about it because he's kind of in that boat.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't feel like, he keeps saying it doesn't feel like Star Wars. I'm like, well, Rogue One, for a lot of it, doesn't feel like Star Wars. I said, until you see Darth Vader, right? Like, then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is, or till
Yeah.
you see the Tarkin figure come out, then you're like, okay, yes, I'm in Star Wars. Or you
Right.
start seeing, when you see the shell of the Death Star when they're building it,
Right.
like,
But if
then
you start to eliminate some of those things, like if you look at Scarif as a planet,
yeah,
Scarif is a very different looking planet. And even some of the things that were not familiar to us, like why am I blanking on his name? But Donnie Yen's character.
Chirrut Imwe.
Sure, right. Like, totally, did anyone know that there were like priests of the Force that weren't necessarily Force users?
I
No,
mean,
that was a complete.
they're mentioned in the Clone Wars, and then in Rebels,
Right, but if you're only watching live action, so
right?
this
If
is
you
my
only,
other point.
yes,
It's like, if you that's been your only like engagement with Star Wars is live action stuff. Like, you're gonna look at Chirrut and be like, what, until he starts doing some like fantastical stuff like blocking blaster bolts while being blind, and you're like, how is that guy not a force user? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so it's like stuff like that. And I think it was palpable because they were small doses. Like K2SO had never been seen before. That kind of Imperial droid had never been seen before.
Right.
But he's gone on, that droid has kind of gone on in many different forms. He's
Yep.
popped up in
Video
animated shows
games.
and video games and things like
Yeah.
that. So, but this, from the droids that we've seen, again, from the ships that we've seen, from the planets that we've seen, from like the everyday man kind of, life, um, where people are running shops or kind of breaking down. Like we've not seen that stuff before.
No, and then
Um,
there's drip. Like I said, we mentioned TIE fighters. There's also the speeder bikes. Like those are
oh
obviously
yeah, the
what
sound that
we've
makes, man,
right.
it's like so exciting for me.
But that's what yeah, like like there's drips of the universe in there. That's why when people are saying it's not Star Wars, I'm like, well, there's definitely plenty of signs are there that it is. But I mean, like I said, I brought up the political parts of the prequels, and people who like the prequels, and the people who cling to liking the political aspects of that show, of that movie, those movies. Like, what, why are you having struggle? Why are you struggling with something like this, which is told so much better,
Yeah, oh yeah, oh
right?
yeah,
Like, this is told 20 times better than those movies.
big time.
So why are you having such a problem? And I can only think it's the pacing. That's really the only thing I could think of, because A New Hope, there's some slow parts in, obviously, but it comes
Hmm.
out bang, right? Like it comes out shooting.
I mean, the way it
Uh,
starts is like, oh shit, you
right.
get that small little ship getting pursued by a Star Destroyer.
Right, and then you like the whole stuff on Tatooine when R2D2 are trying just
Right,
right, and then they're found, and Luke, like that whole stuff is kind of boring. It's not interesting until Obi-Wan enters the picture. Then it gets interesting again.
right,
So like you have all those slow elements there, but again, that's told in a movie that has to be 2 hours long or 2.5 hours long at
right,
most, right? This
right,
is a series that we know is 24 episodes, so you have time to develop a lot of the different things that you want to tell in this story.
right.
And yeah, the first 3 episodes were slow. I said it last week. They were, until the third episode when you're kind of like, all right, it picks up.
Yeah,
So, but that's like reading a book, right? Like that's anything that where you're getting descriptive
that's right.
and character building. You have to read and get to the part where you know the character, and then they go into whatever it is they're going to do,
Right.
which makes for a better book, show, movie, in my estimation.
Yep.
So that's what I don't get that either. Why people are having such a hard time. The only other thing I think of too is the world we live in now. Everyone wants stuff like that,
That's right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like episode 3 did a great job at kind of putting the chess pieces on the board, right?
Yep.
Because what it did was, and it did this visually. It showed us every character that was impacted by Cassian's decision
Yep.
to shoot those two guards in the first, 5 minutes of the show.
Yep.
The girl that got chained to the wall, his friend that had the cover for him, the guy that ended up ratting him out that was dead. All of that stuff, his surrogate mother, all that stuff, right? The ripple effect that got created from him alone,
Yes. Yeah.
you know? And like that all needed to be set up because we needed to understand that this movement starts with the inspiration or the sort of the direction that other people are having on these other folks because they all are feeling this oppression.
Yep.
Like he is the gaslight that just sets it all up. And we don't know like what direction these other characters are going to go in. Some might become, imperial, sympathizers. Some might become other cells within the rebellion. I mean, fast forward to, or kind of rewind, Matt, rather rewind to where we are in Obi-Wan, where he meets, I even forgot his name,
Who?
Ice Cube's kid,
Yeah, I don't remember his name either,
uh,
but
something Jackson,
his
O'Shea.
name is O'Shea Jackson.
Yeah,
Yes.
that guy. But whatever character he is, but like that's what Obi-Wan is to him, is a
Yeah.
catalyst for standing up and fighting. And so like that, that is the stuff that I'm very interested in exploring more of. And again, I love the fantastical, mythical stuff of Star Wars. I love, the Force and watching people fight with lightsabers and shit like that. The challenge is that I can go on YouTube and watch some kids in Sweden with their lightsaber club do some pretty epic shit. I don't need to see it all the time. And that does not what defines Star Wars to me. It's the stories, you know?
Yeah, and there's plenty of room for this in this universe now. So a story like this, because the reason why it doesn't feel like Star Wars because we've never had it before,
That's right. That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So that's the beauty of this show, and that's really what I've enjoyed so far in the first 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we've talked before. We've all said, yeah, we love all that stuff. It's great, but it's getting stale. You have to start doing other things so that there's other interesting stories and that there's other things people can latch onto for Star Wars. People might not like Jedis and all that other stuff, but something like this is it seems to be turning into like a spy thriller type of show.
Yeah.
A lot of people like those kinds of shows.
Yeah.
So you're giving them that under the Star Wars umbrella and Star
Yeah.
Wars name.
It starts
Like,
to transcend what you think of it or what you
yeah.
thought of Star Wars. I mean, it's funny because Grogu was one of those things in Star Wars. Is granted we had seen something like that, but we've never seen a child of that, and just the question mark of it and how cute it was. Like, I mean, people who never talked about Star Wars were invested in Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian and like that. It was it's like that father-son adventure story, which is again is a little different from what we've seen before in traditional Star Wars. Now, granted, it walks a very different line in terms of the moment they start mentioning the Force and the moment they start talking about Jedi, you're like, yep, we're gonna get something that's more connected to the familiarity of Star Wars. What we're getting here is, yeah, we're using familiar characters like Amon Mothma and some of the other folks that will likely be introduced to tell that ground level story of like how a small and mighty group of individuals managed to topple a complete entire galactic political system.
Yeah, this is the birth of the rebellion,
Yeah.
right? This is what we're seeing. We're seeing the birth of what spurred on everything else that we got
Yeah.
in the original trilogy.
Yep. Like
So
Luke
that
Skywalker didn't do it alone.
no, right, exactly. You know what? And Obi-Wan, we found out he had a history. How did he get to be where he is? And no, everything that's been added has, even in the stuff that we may not particularly care for, it still is. That was expanding the universe. So why are people okay accepting that? And they have issues with this so far. So my hope is that going forward, people stick with it and that they wound up loving it, because so far, this is, like I said, this has been expert storytelling. That's what it's been more than anything else.
Yep.
And Tony Gilroy is, I mean, he came in and helped finish Rogue One. And then if you ever saw the movie Michael Clayton, that was something he wrote and directed. This
Mm-hmm.
guy he does these the Jason Bourne series, the Bourne movies. He wrote those. So this
Mm-hmm.
is his wheelhouse. This is what he does. Like,
Yep.
these are the kinds of things he does well. So just roll with it, guys, because I'm telling you, I have a feeling when this is all said and done, you're gonna look back and say that might be the best Star Wars show we've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting the feels like
Yeah,
big time. And look, like I rewatched the trailer for season 3 of The Mandalorian, and I'm like ready, chomping at the bit for all of that.
yeah.
But like, if this is the thing that says, yeah, we can give you something different, something more than what you're used to seeing in Star Wars, I'm up for it. Get me ready for the Acolyte. Get me ready for some of the other stuff that they have on the horizon. Because I'll be honest, like anytime they announce something that doesn't necessarily seem like it fits inside of what I'm used to seeing in Star Wars, I'm gonna be like, like that Jude Law Skeleton Crew. I think it's Skeleton Crew. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Celtic Korea.
I'm like, Jude Law. What is this? But
Right.
yo, if get all right, you know what I mean? Like, if this is what we're gonna do, and they're being laser focused on kind of delivering top tier storytelling over the spectacle of it all, I'm down with it.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
they're doing both, right? You're
Yeah.
getting Ahsoka, you got Obi-Wan, like you're getting the stories of people we already know and are familiar with.
Right.
We're getting those shows, and this is another one that was kind of just new. Like The Mandalorian was new. This is new. This is kind of in that avenue. And then you're getting stuff in animation. You're getting the Tales of the Jedi that's going to talk about
Yep.
Ahsoka, Dooku, and who else was it? There's three of them, I think, or was it just two of them? Might have just been two. But you're gonna get the backstory for someone like Count Dooku. Like I've always say, like what happened there? Like you in your head,
Yeah.
like why did he go that route? Well, you're gonna find out, guys. It might not be in live action, but they're gonna give it to you
Yep.
in animation. And Star Wars animation, sorry, Rick, is all great. So I there's very few things I haven't liked in animation that they've done. So
Same.
yeah,
Same.
so
And I'll be honest, if you have skipped the animation, you are missing some of the best Force related stuff.
oh yes.
That that is. I mean, what we're seeing on screen just scratches the surface.
Yeah, the
That the
animation
end
is
of the finale of Rebels.
oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that show was fantastic. Like all of it's been so great. So yeah, I'm very, 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 very excited for what we have coming forward and for the continuation of Andor as we go through now. Well, we have the final 8 episodes of season 1, or 7 episodes, season 1. I might be screwing up. And then what happens in season 2 from there.
Yeah.
All right, man. So I want to thank you for coming on. This was great.
Of course.
You're welcome to come back on again as the season goes on. Like I told Steve last week, I'm like, maybe at the end of the season I'll get everybody on. We'll have like a nice big Brady Bunch type screen,
We'll
and
just start
everyone
screaming at each other. What are you talking about?
we
No.
can have a nice big discussion. But yeah, we've never done anything together one on one, so this has been awesome.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you.
So it's been great. I guess tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at AARonSpeaks. That is A_A_Ron Speaks. And you can also check out my podcast where we talk about other pop culture stuff, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, all of that, whatever floats our fancy. We just did an episode on Cobra Kai, which was a
Nice.
phenomenal season. And you can check that out at the Fanboy Garage, and that is at the Fanboy Garage on Twitter.
Yeah, so if you ever need someone to come on about Cobra Kai who didn't like this last season, you could ask me. We could.
Oh boy,
we can argue about that because
all right.
It's been hit or miss for me in that show. But overall I like what they've done with the keeping it alive and stuff. But
Yeah.
now we're getting a new Karate Kid movie.
Oh, we are? I didn't even
Yeah.
hear about that.
There's a reboot, yeah.
A reboot of a reboot? So like what, Jaden Smith isn't doing this one either?
Yeah, this is another completely new Karate Kid story that they're doing. So
Oh boy.
yeah, I don't know where we're going with that. But if you guys want, as you guys know, if you guys want to catch me on Twitter, there's my stuff right there on the screen, but it's at finally33, spell finale33. And of course the handle me and Pete both kind of moderate that one is at straight_O_G. Definitely get at me about this, about anything we discuss on Straight Outta Gotham, even on my Knicks show. If you want to talk to me about the New York Knicks, you can hit me up there as well, and I will argue because that's what that team makes me do. So that's where I'm at with that. All right. So for Aaron, I'm Eric. You're watching SOG Tonight, and I'll see you next time.